Now let's talk about something extremely interesting, which is the pons. So pons is a structure which is connecting the medulla with the midbrain. So what do you see here? This structure right here is the pons, and it is basically connecting the cerebellum with the midbrain. We are looking at a structure which is basically 1 inch long. It's 2.5 centimeters in length. It gets its name because it acts as a bridge to connect the right and left cerebellar hemispheres. The anterior surface is going to be convex. It is going to be protruded, and it is going to have many superficial transverse pontine fibers which are going to converge from side to side to form the middle cerebellar peduncle. So anteriorly, we're going to see the middle cerebellar peduncle. And also, we're going to see in the midline a shallow groove, which is the basilar groove, which lodges the basilar artery. Now, what else do you see here? We see something yellow. So this is basically a nerve. So this is on the anterolateral side, we are going to see the trigeminal nerve, which is going to emerge on each side. Each nerve is going to consist of a smaller medial part, which is the motor root. And on the lateral side, we're going to see the sensory root of the trigeminal nerve or the fifth cranial nerve. In the groove which is present between the pons and the medulla, we're going to see from the medial to the lateral side, 6th, 7th, and 8th cranial nerve. Now let's talk about the posterior surface of the pons, which is going to be hidden from view by the cerebellum because the cerebellum is present right here, posteriorly. It is going to form the upper half of the floor of the fourth ventricle, and it is going to be triangular in shape. In the middle, we are going to see a median sulcus. We can remember that the posterior surface is laterally limited by the superior cerebellar peduncle, so PS. So it is divided into the symmetrical halves by a median sulcus. Lateral to the median sulcus, we are going to see a medial eminence, and lateral to the medial eminence, we are going to see a sulcus, which is the sulcus limitans. So the inferior end of the medial eminence is going to form the facial colliculus. What is so special about the facial colliculus is that it is going to be produced by the root of the facial nerve, which is binding around the nucleus of the abducent nerve. So the floor of the superior part of the sulcus limitans is going to be limited by the substantia ferruginea, which is a pigmented part. It owes its color due to a group of deeply pigmented nerve cells. Lateral to the sulcus limitans, we are going to see the vestibular area, which is produced by the underlying vestibular nuclei. We are going to divide the pons into a posterior tegmentum part and an anterior basal part, which is divided by the transversely running fibers of the trapezoid body. So the structure of the pons is going to be studied at 2 levels. The first level is that of the transverse section of the caudal part through the caudal part of passing through the facial colliculus, and the second level is going to be the transverse section through the cranial part, which is passing through the trigeminal nuclei. Let's talk about the 2 levels of the pons. So there are 2 levels. The first level is at the level of the facial colliculus, and the second level is going to be at the level of the trigeminal nuclei. So let's talk about the cavities. So the cavity is always going to be that of the fourth ventricle. Now let's talk about the nuclei. For the nuclei, I have a mnemonic for you guys, which is 5, 6, 7, 8 PT for the facial colliculus. So what is 5? 5 is the spinal nucleus of the fifth cranial nerve. What is 6? 6 is the sixth cranial nerve nucleus, which is the nucleus of the abducent nerve. 7 is the facial nucleus, and 8 is the medial vestibular nucleus at the level of the trigeminal nuclei. So for that, we only have 5 PT. 5 for the nucleus of the fifth cranial nerve, main sensory and motor nucleus. We are going to have the pontine nuclei and the trapezoid nuclei. Now let's talk about the sensory tracts first. So just remember SLIM for that. 5 for the spinal tract of the fifth cranial nerve. SLM for spinal, lateral, and medial lemnisci. Let's talk about the sensory tracts at the level of the trigeminal nuclei. So we are going to have the same SLM thing. This is the spinal, lateral, and medial lemnisci. Now let's talk about the motor tracts. For the motor tracts, you to remember a motorbike. So for bikes, you can remember CC, like 11cc. So basically, this is a person named Tim, and he is sitting on a bike, or TMCC. C for the corticospinal tract, and C again for the corticonuclear tract, and T for the transverse pontine fibers, and M for the medial longitudinal fasciculus. And the same is that of the at the level of the trigeminal nuclei. Let's draw the pons at the level of the facial colliculus together. First of all, I'm gonna make this one. Then I'm gonna make a crown. Then I'm going to make something like this. Then I'm going to make something like a circle again. This. See here. Here we can see the cavity of the fourth ventricle. This is the superior medullary velum. This is the superior cerebellar peduncle, and this is the inferior cerebellar peduncle. This is the vestibular nucleus that looks like an ear. Here we have the abducent nerve, which is the fifth cranial nerve. Here we have the abducent nerve, which is medially present, and facial nerve, which is laterally present. What do you see right here? This is the trapezoid body. This is the medial longitudinal fasciculus, and this is the medial lemniscus. This is the spinal tract and the nucleus of the fifth cranial nerve. And here we have the corticospinal and the corticonuclear tracts, and these are the superficial transverse pontine fibers. And this is the facial colliculus. This is the facial colliculus. And here we can see the groove for basilar artery. Now let's draw the level of pons at the trigeminal nucleus level. So first of all, we are going to draw a mountain. Then we are going to draw the superior cerebellar peduncle. And here we can closely see that this is the cavity of the fourth ventricle. And this is the medial longitudinal fasciculus. And here, of course, we are going to find the medial lemniscus. And this is the trapezoid body. And this is the motor and sensory part of the trigeminal nerve. This is the spinal lemniscus. This is the medial lemniscus. This was a middle cerebellar peduncle. And these are the superficial transverse fibers, and this is the pontine nucleus. And here we can see the corticospinal and corticonuclear tracts. And here we have the medial longitudinal fasciculus.